Hello and welcome, a warm welcome on this rather grey, drizzly day to the podcast Strong, Grounded, Unstoppable. Now, I really am excited to welcome an old friend, a member or participant in my Women of Spirit books, the most extraordinary, radiant soul who is so authentic in what she does, how she shows up, and in deeply in who she is. Her name is Karen Ramsey Smith. In fact, we first met when Mummy was still alive, and Mummy and I completely fell in love with her. I was giving a talk at Barnsley House, I think, on being confident. Anyway, Karen, welcome.
Thank you, Susie. It's lovely to see you again. Really lovely.
It's lovely to
Really.
spend a little quality time with you now. Now, for those of you who don't know Karen, she is she teaches change makers or supports change makers to lead from truth, balance, and intuition. She's very soulful, very spiritual. I believe ex-corporate, and that'll be part of the story. She does the most incredible transformational retreats. I've been blessed to have attended one, and soulful workshops. But it's been quite a journey for you, hasn't it, Karen? And what I love to do is go back to when we were very small. Was there anything in childhood that particularly, even though you didn't know it, set you on the path to where you are now? Of course, there was that 25 years, I think, of corporate in that. So where for you did it all begin?
Yeah, God, well, I mean, let's we could be here for days.
For days.
Yeah, I think if you're talking about childhood, as a child, I was quite a solitary child, I think, as a very young child. And I spent a lot of time out in nature, which sounds a bit strange to be in nature on your own as a child, but I was close by to my family home, but I did spend a lot of time out in nature. So that's a big part of my story. I think things that happened as a child, we're all born into this life to experience amazing things to help us to grow. Some of those things painful, some of those things joyful. And for me, having an upbringing that taught me that I needed to learn through my experience as a child, and to allow myself to move through the soul's journey like every single person does into adulthood, to come into that sort of awareness that what I experienced from childhood all the way to adulthood was actually something that has been the most incredible journey. Yes, there's been a lot of pain, there's been a lot of all sorts of joys and all sorts of different things, a lot of loss, a lot of grief, but all of it now has created the awareness of life that I have today. Something I'm deeply, deeply grateful for is that journey from childhood. So yeah, very, very cut a long story short, was a very creative child. As I said, I spent a lot of time in nature. I always have been deeply connected with nature. I was quite a creative child, so I really enjoyed sort of art and drawing and things like that. Highly empathetic, highly sensitive. The environment I grew up around, I picked up on everybody's energies. I was always preempting what everybody was going to say, was going to do, and that for a highly sensitive empath, in a sense, was quite painful.
Yes,
Picked up.
yes.
I was quite psychic as a child, so I picked up a lot was happening. What was happening in my parents' lives, in my siblings' lives, and that sort of continued really. As a highly sensitive child, an empathetic child, moving into adolescenthood and adulthood, trying to find my way, trying to become what I thought was being good or being something that was doing things right, and ended up sort of channeling my creativity into graphics and marketing and communications, and yeah, went on a whole careers journey, 26 years in marketing, ended up being a marketing director and absolutely hated it. So
So that's the
found yeah,
challenge when you have innate strengths and skills and you try to apply them in a steady paid job. It's somehow it's not the same, is it, as being free and creative and having that freedom, because there are structures and strictures and hours, and for a highly sensitive empath as well, that's not brilliant. So bloody well done for sticking with it for 25 years. Was there something in you or from someone else? Was it because it was the done thing, or were you particularly keen on being independent and supporting yourself? Was that drummed
Yeah, I
into
think
you?
there was definitely, and firstly to say, I pushed all of my gifts to the bottom of the barrel during that 26 years, and probably before that. That's a painful thing, I think, also for an empath, somebody who's creative and has a lot of gifts to give in the world. To do that to yourself is very, very painful. And for me, that came from, which I think it does for a lot of us, a space of trying to please, to fit in, to want to feel like we belong, probably, to please our parents or some kind of idea of authority or something,
Yeah.
that we've chosen well, or
Yes,
we're doing well or
approval.
whatever.
To have the approval.
Exactly that. So yeah, it came from all of those things, and yeah, I think that sort of drawing into that way of life and that way of living um, becomes highly poisonous to a highly sensitive creative. And so, I stuck with it for as long as I could. I had two children in that time, but it affected everything. All of my people pleasing tendencies and trying to be something that I wasn't.
When you're not,
Yeah,
when you're not truly aligned, it's hard. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was like you. I was empathetic, compassionate. I was kind, but a people pleaser, and in fact, I was a doormat. And there's a lot of my childhood that sort of goes into that, and school. And I hated school so much, I left. But I didn't know what I wanted to do or who I was. Excuse me. I do apologise. I've got that awful thing right in the throat. So people, please block your ears. Gosh, I'm so sorry.
it's
Um,
okay.
when you don't know what you want to do, but you know you've got to do something, and in those days, a creative career wasn't as open as I went and trained to be a secretary, which is the last thing I wanted to do. And so the jobs I got were awful because I did 2 years private secretary certificate. So that resonates with me. And the question I want to ask you from that, do you think it's a generational thing? You're not as old as I am, but do you think it's partly because of the um, expectations of our parents, of what they'd been brought up with, which was probably essentially a job for life, and to get a proper job? Did you feel the pressure to do that?
Um, yeah, I do think it, yeah, has something to do with it. I also think that, the reason why you and I are talking about this today is because we are in very, very potent times,
Uh-huh.
where a lot of the people are. Anybody who's watching is probably becoming aware of their own ways that they've held themselves back,
Mm.
and it's very easy to blame our generations before us, to say that's where it comes from. And inherently, we do have ancestral wounds. We do have lineage wounds. We do carry that in our DNA. And so it is part of our process as a
Mhm.
soul
Mm.
when we're born, to actually take these things through our body and actually become aware of them so that we can transmute them
Mm.
back into something that is useful and helps us to grow and helps us to
Yes, and
be.
heal. I think that's where people like you who stop doing what they're not meant to be doing and follow their heart and their soul, who can explain the whys and the wherefores to people who aren't aware of all of that. Um, there's an awful lot of woundage and things. And one of the things I love about you is that you are now so authentic and so aligned with your brand, because you are in business, and your soul radiance is a very beautiful thing. And when and where did that sort of come to you, that that's what you were supposed to be doing? I do remember I had to photograph you for your story in my Women of Spirit book under a tree with gorgeous flowers, and your dress was all floral. And I know that nature is very, very important to you. And so where did that come from? That knowing
Mhm.
that that's who you wanted to be? And did ego get in the way at any point at all?
Yeah, I mean, uh, of course, and still, just I don't think just because I have a brand called Your Soul Radiance. I think that radiance, as I totally believe it comes from within us, and I do believe you mentioned about the heart earlier, and I do believe a lot of the I call it being rather than we call it the work, doing this healing work. Why is it work? We've got enough work to do. What do we need to do more work? But really coming into more state of being with your heart and not resisting that pain and suffering
Mm.
that we've all been through. Everybody's been through something, and nobody's pain is greater than another. Your pain is your pain, my pain is my pain.
Exactly.
And it's really being aware of when you're being distracted from your heart more than trying to be in your heart and trying to be radiant and all of the rest of it. We can't get there by doing things. And
Making it work.
most, exactly, most of our life is about trying to distract us into doing.
Yes.
Every single day, you get up in the morning, you're like, I've got a to-do list, and it's all distracting you from your heart and from a state of being that actually is your true soul, what I would call a radiance from.
Absolutely, the state of being. I spoke recently about being a human being rather than a human doing. And you're absolutely right, Karen. So you gave yourself or give yourself permission to be a human being and help other people go into more of being a human being. Is that right?
Yeah, because I believe we help people when we fully accept and we fully bring our whole journey into our heart,
Mm,
like
mm.
really fully accept our whole journey. And until those fragmented pieces aren't back into our heart, there's bits of us that are almost wanting to be in that radiant space, but we keep rejecting them. And a lot of it is to do with that state of being that
Yeah,
these things do naturally happen
yeah.
when we give space to the heart.
And I was going to ask you there, we keep rejecting that. Um, why do we reject it? Why do we not just let it in?
Well,
Is that the
we
lessons we keep having to learn in order for it to be let in? Okay.
lessons that life is not about punishment. It's not about like we've got to go through these lessons and yeah, okay, we do learn things and we are able to grow, but why we don't accept ourselves fully is because we're afraid. We're afraid of what might happen if we fully let go. If we
Okay.
fully let go of this part of ourselves that's been protecting ourselves for so long, what is going to happen with there's this little voice that says, what will happen if you just let it all
Yes.
go?
Hold on tight. Hold it in. Hold on. Hold on. I remember seeing a healer and she said to me, Susie, you are so tightly holding on. You've got to let go. And I said, But if I let go, this is many years ago, but if I let go, I'm afraid I'll fall down. She said, you won't fall down, you'll fall open or fall apart, I think. She said, you'll fall open. And I thought, what a magnificent explanation of to let go. We're going to blossom and bloom.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about the seed, they were going into the most beautiful time of the year,
Mm.
winter. So we're told constantly, oh, it's going to be cold, it's going to be horrible, it's going to be dreary, it's, and all of these things. And, but actually, winter is the most beautiful time of the year because so much happens underneath the earth in the
Mm.
winter time. When we allow ourselves to be in the state of wintering, we too go into that deep, nourishing soil.
I
We
love
too,
that.
we become the seed, and the seed needs space to unfurl. It needs space to unravel. Think about what happens to a seed when it's
Mm-hmm.
underneath the earth. It unravels, it
Mm.
unfurls, it takes the nourishment from the earth.
Yes.
We're invited to do this every single season of winter.
Okay. So, and the other thing is we spend all that time in the dark before we come out into the light. So we're invited to do this every winter by whatever the higher power that we choose to believe in, or is that just literally the nature's cycle that human beings need to follow and absorb and work with or go with
Well,
every
we
year,
are
every
nature.
winter? Okay.
We are nature.
Ah,
Why would we be separate from it? It's
yeah.
not about having a belief as such, but it's about understanding that we are part of that
Oh
cycle.
gosh,
And
yes.
if we're resisting it, if we're saying, no, I need to push through, I've still got all these things to do, and I must do this and I must do that, and we don't allow ourselves to be in the season of wintering. Wintering is very much about the dream time. So I work very much with Celtic energy or pre-Celtic energy, and it's very much about following the seasons, following the cycles, as our ancestors did way, way, way back, and honouring and respecting the earth. And when we do that, in turn, we're honouring and respecting ourselves. So wintering is very much about, when you look at animals, they go into hibernation, they allow themselves that deep rest. It's sacred to nature to do that and give reverence to that. And when we allow ourselves to do that, we are giving reverence and sacredness to our own season of being able to go into that deep rest, to dream the dreams before the spring, before the rebirth of the spring, before those things become plants and they tip their heads above the earth. We too, if we can just give ourselves that bit of respect and
Yeah,
space, the
that
magic really, really does
does
happen there.
happen. You have just spoken a few words around an incredibly important topic that could change some people's lives. I certainly, we kind of sometimes some of us know this, but we don't, we just go, oh, and I think there's possibly a little human arrogance in the fact that, oh, well, I've got my desk, I've got this and that, and I don't need to stop. I don't need to slow down because we have everything at our fingertips to keep pushing through or pushing forward. But actually, to let go and to hibernate, those are such profound words of wisdom that I think need to be spoken again and again and more out there, because what happens to us if we don't just take some time out? And I love that wintering, you know, oh, and we are part of nature. I think sometimes we forget that we're part of nature and we go with the flow. I know Lottie, my eldest, was born on a new moon, or oh gosh, I should know, full moon or new moon. It was a big moon. And she really feels the cyclic lunar flows, ebbs and flows. And the fact that we're a huge percentage water, aren't we? 75 odd of water. So, and the moon affects the tides. No wonder it affects us. because, as you say, we are part of nature. And quite frankly, I'd forgotten that. I'm sure a lot of people don't really have that alongside them in their day-to-day life. Hang on a minute, I'm part of nature. So thank you for your words of wisdom and teachings. And after you left your corporate world, what happened then?
I I just needed time to allow the emotion. I'd pressed down so many emotions. I needed time to allow the emotions to come up to the surface. And for me, my solace and my sacred home, if you like, my childhood home was nature. So I spent a lot of time back outside. I took 6 months off work.
Yeah,
I was privileged enough to be able to do that because of
yeah,
my position. And I did spend a lot of time in nature. And through that came, I'd actually 12 months before, I'd been on a mindfulness course, and I'd met a mindfulness teacher, and I'd been on this sort of intensive mindfulness course, and I absolutely loved it in a way that I knew something was truthful about
yeah,
stopping and slowing down.
yeah,
The part of me that hated it was my protective part, which was desperately trying to keep the tears at bay the whole 6 days or whatever I was doing this intensive mindfulness program. And we was meditating all the time, every day. And all I could think about was, I just need to stop myself from crying and making a fool of myself in front of all these people. And so that was the next stage, the
uh-huh,
realization of my heart was bursting with all of these emotions that I had pushed away and pushed into little corners of my body. And that all needed, of course, to come out. So once I'd asked for help and I got help, I spent more time meditating, more outdoors, all of that healing started to happen. Studied and gave space to somebody who supported me with EFT tapping, which was really helpful as well, just to clear everything. And then after that, I ended up finding coaching. I had a coach myself, and then I found coaching. I became a coach, and was coaching women to start off with. That was a whole journey that I went on. And yeah, just came to that space of better self-awareness, better awareness of my emotions, better awareness of my heart, better awareness of where am I in that ego
mm,
state?
mm,
What is
mm,
that about?
mm.
Who is that? And I started to question and be curious about that part of me, and just began to sink into more of a natural place of me, if you like.
Yeah,
But I think
yeah,
the thing that really changed it for me, changed everything for me, and was probably that point where a point of no return, where I was never going to go back. Was obviously I started my own business at that point, and I was coaching and mindfulness teaching hand in hand. But then I lost my mum to a malignant brain tumour. My dad I'd already lost when I was at work, also to a malignant brain tumour. So I'd had two big losses, which were devastating. And I know you know what it's like to go through the loss of a loved one, especially a mum. It's a very deep core
yes.
wood that
Whatever
is very,
your relationship has been, in a way, there's a very deep
yeah,
connection. And I remember
yeah,
you were so wonderful and brave at the time we launched Women of Spirit Book 2 to come, even though it was a dodgy time, I think, for your mum. You really
yeah.
did give generously, and that's part of who you are. So you said you had a business working with women at the time. How has that progressed?
Yeah, so that's evolved and stuff over time. I think probably because of the experiences, I think we do evolve our businesses over time. They work with us, they
Definitely.
evolve with
Yeah.
us,
Yeah.
very, very much so. And it's really sort of allowing yourself to
Yes.
accept that
Yes.
journey, and know that
Yes.
what you're giving is from a space of pure authenticity.
Yes. Yes.
And two of the big things that hold us back, I think, are probably the two red flags, if you like,
Mm.
that hold us back from doing that and from being ourselves in our lives and our work, or whatever you like to call it, our business. is blame and guilt. They're the two
Oh,
biggest
yeah,
culprits.
yeah,
We're looking to blame something outside of ourselves, that we're distracting ourselves from that love and compassion to ourselves, so we can come into alignment. And also guilt's a terrible one. I mean, going on to the second and third big loss, when I lost my mum, the guilt of like staying alive, like you're still alive, and you've not been through that terrible suffering that that person you've lost has been through. And then losing my partner, then later on, as you know, that same year, I lost my partner to suicide, which was again another shocking, tragic loss, which was out of the blue and very
yeah,
confusing loss. It's a very deep core
yeah.
loss.
Cool. And
Um,
especially he did it in nature, didn't he? It's a place where you,
Yes. Oh, well, he
I
loved
mean,
nature, which is
yeah,
one of the reasons why we got together. We used to spend a
yeah.
lot of time out in nature together. Yeah, I think, you know, that guilt can stay with you, that you're still able
How
to
can
live.
I be happy and do things that are
And all the
positive?
questions, all the questions,
Oh,
the unanswered questions
yeah,
that come with tragic
yeah,
loss
yeah.
and any type of loss, really,
Mm.
like what is like, where is my person? Where's my person gone? Where are they? Where physically are they? And all of the things that come then with breaking that attachment, that relationship with somebody through loss, then again, it points you back. Grief points you back to yourself. It points you back to what's going on in here. And you go through that journey once again with yourself, don't you? It's like another, for me, we're always going through these cycles of death and
Yes,
rebirth. And that's
yes,
something that is in the other thing that I work with is energetics,
yes,
soul energetics. So I work with numerology, human design, and
yes,
healing in that way.
yes.
And the one thing that numerology really helps you to see is to see yourself from a modality that helps you to see into your soul, rather than we're all quite often think, and we're looking outside to see what everybody else is doing to get the answers, about what we're supposed to be doing. But something like numerology, for example, helps you to see who you are, helps you to see what's actually, and that's why your birthday, you talked about your daughter with being born on a full or a new moon. There's something energetic in that, and your birthday holds a lot of energy, which helps you to understand yourself. So, for example, the reason why I'm always working and I've had a lot of experiences with rebirth and with death and with loss, particularly, is because in numerologically, I am a nine, and
Ah,
nine very much experience a lot of endings and beginnings, very,
yes,
very deep endings and beginnings.
yes,
We're
yeah.
also in a 9-year universally until the end of 2026. So those of us who are nines, who are old souls, very old souls, and they tend to feel this very, very deeply. So this year has been a huge year for me. So anybody who has 9 in their chart this year, will particularly feel that universal, energy of consciousness of endings and beginnings. And so a lot of people universally, all of us have been noticing what we are ending, or what we're being called, what our soul's calling us to just say that's the end
Yes,
of that.
enough.
Starting,
Yeah,
I'm beginning again. I'm allowing this to evolve into a new beginning.
yes, yes. Karen, this is brilliant and beautiful because sometimes when you are working and you've got your checklist and you want to do this and da da da, and it's all very doing. Um, I at your retreat, I had a session. We were all had a session with the wonderful Jo Soley, brilliant numerologist. I still have her newsletters coming through, and it was utterly fascinating. And I must revisit numerology and I think work more with it. So if anybody listening or watching here wants to know more, I would contact Karen and have a chat with her if that's okay, about those elements of the things that you do. Um, when you talked about guilt, about your partner not being with you anymore, um, was it a certain because I've have a friend, Jim Bernardo, who's been on the podcast. He's in America or California, and he talked about the statistics of male suicide, which are absolutely appalling and desperately sad. Do you think you would have felt less guilty or a different kind of guilt if he had died in a car crash or of an illness rather than taking his own life? Do you think that he took his own life? Did you ever feel, oh my God, I didn't do enough, or I was any of that? Did you? I hope not, but is that a normal feeling? I want people to hear from the coalface what it was like.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that come with a loss to suicide. I mean, you could create a whole series of podcasts about it.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
what I would say is that I can't say because I've not lost somebody in that way. So, and as I said before, I have reverence for every type of loss.
yes.
So, I wouldn't say my loss is any different to anybody
Mm,
else's.
mm,
However,
mm.
what I would say is loss to suicide is a deeply heart opening devastation that takes you to a place of darkness yourself. It's actually very common for I know this is a sensitive topic, but it is quite the amount of people that go into difficult mental health states of being after losing somebody to suicide is very, very high.
Yeah,
So it has a huge energetic
yeah,
ripple effect,
yeah,
and it almost sets like a tear. If we think about the consciousness
yeah.
as a whole, and we think about the cycles of how, if you believe in this, or if you, it's not even a belief, but if there's something that tells you that this is not your only life, if you sense that you have perhaps been in lives before this life and you feel like this isn't your last life, or you feel like you've been here a lot of times, and you sense that consciousness as a whole, that as souls we are having an experience in this lifetime and we go on to something else,
Mm,
then you
mm,
that a loss like that, a sudden deep loss, any kind of sudden deep tragic unexpected loss like that, it creates a kind of tear in the consciousness. So you can imagine how that then has a ripple effect.
yes,
And it's something that then everybody around that was around that person has there is then an invitation there to do a lot of deep work on
yes.
themselves. So that's
Okay.
the one thing that I would say is, without going into it too deeply, there's a lot of brings a lot up to the surface,
Yes.
and I
Yeah.
believe that everybody comes into our lives for a
Reason,
reason. I don't
season, lifetime. Yeah.
Yeah, and people, I believe my partner came into my life for a reason. I believe that he brought me a lot of joy, a lot of sadness, a lot of grief, a lot of all of the things to help me to come into my own
Yes.
life,
Yes.
to
Yeah.
come into my own being in some
Yes.
way.
Yes.
And I do believe that his loss was his choice.
Oh, yes. Yes.
His exit from this life
Yes. Was on
was
his
his choice, and that
terms in
was
a
his
way.
journey.
Yeah. His terms.
So,
Yeah. And he felt that that was the end of the road for him. I
yeah, I
actually
mean, I
think,
can't say that that's what he felt, but
no, I suppose not. Yeah.
what I do feel is a deep peace since I've done the work that he
Mm.
brought forward for me.
Okay.
I have found a deep peace in
Yes.
having had that experience, to have him in
Yeah.
my life at that time,
Yeah.
and it's brought me a peace through that. And yes, it still hurts. It's still painful, like everybody's lost. We don't ever really get over it
No.
because it is a rip, it is a tear
Yes.
in our hearts and in the content
Yes.
of our
Yes.
heart.
Yes.
Uh,
I'd heard about
but
grief that you don't get over it, you learn to live with it.
yeah, but you also you can also, what I would say is that grief can also bring you to a depth of gratitude and appreciation for life itself, especially through suicide loss. That when we lose
Wow.
somebody close, my goodness, don't we appreciate our own lives
Mm.
and look at life in a different way?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
even if
Yeah.
for a short period of time we go,
Yes.
do you know
Yes.
what? I'm so lucky
Oh,
to still be here
that's a
every day.
beautiful, yeah, beautiful way to look at it, and I'm sure will be very helpful. On a brighter note, you now have somebody in your life. I was so happy to see that on Facebook. And you were so gorgeous. It just came when it was ready. You waited till the time was right, the person was right. Um, and you now work together. Is that right?
Yes, so I met Simon a couple of years ago. Like I said, you know, I was ready, I was open, I'd done a lot of work with my heart,
Yeah.
and he came at the right time. And yeah, we've just sort of followed our knowing, and that's all I can describe it as. But we had a beautiful experience of becoming firewalking instructors and
Yes.
breakthrough coaches together in
Yes.
Ireland,
Yes.
working on the Celtic land, and started to work with the land, which and through that modality and the activities that we do with other people at retreats.
Mm.
And yeah, that's kind of evolved into its own thing, which is sort of kind of sitting alongside but also joining in together beautifully with
Mm. Mm.
my coaching, mentoring, and energetics work.
Mm. Mm.
And yeah, so we run retreats together. Simon supports me in those retreat experiences.
Yes.
Experiences are not really retreat; they're bringing together of people, and we
Yeah.
create like a community in a short space of time
Mm.
out of beauty and love and
Oh, I
goodness.
can imagine with you.
In
We'd,
that short time, it's just what you
yeah,
can create when you
yeah,
set the
yeah,
intention to be open with each other
yeah.
and
So tell
support
me
each other
about
fully.
firewalking. How?
I don't think I was going to be a firewalker. No, I would say I've always worked with the elements. So as I said,
Yes.
since a child, I've always, I used to go down to my local river here, and we would be gone as children between, I don't know, 9 o'clock in the morning on the weekends till the lights came on.
Yeah.
We just go and play. So play was always very important to me, especially with the elements, with the water. I'm a breathwork instructor, so I use the breath,
Yes.
and I've always put my feet in the earth. I've always had my hands in the earth. I was always playing with worms when I was a
Yeah.
child,
Yeah.
making rose petal lotions and things. Yeah, so fire was the one element, I think, the only way I'd come into contact with fire was with my mum and dad's coal fire at home. And I think that's or lighting a candle, which I've
Yes.
got here.
Yes.
It's probably the only way I've ever
Yes.
known fire,
Yeah.
apart from that, being afraid of it
Yes.
with a fire
And
engine, or
yes, yeah. It's
like
hot and
being
dangerous
terrified in
and
the 70s of the public announcement films about
yeah.
houses being on fire and things.
Mm.
The fire was, for me, something quite scary
And destructive sometimes.
and destructive. So when I met Simon, Simon introduced me to dragons. He's a big fan of dragons,
Oh,
and
so you're
and
dragonflies and he's
yeah, I'm
dragons.
dragonflies, he's
I
dragons.
love it.
And yeah, and so shortly after I met Simon, I started to get this feeling that I wanted to work closer with the elements.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's a few things happened, and I happened to have come into contact with my now mentor um, at the Wild Soul Tribe, and I had a call with Lottie, who runs that, and I just knew I was meant to be doing this. And I said, "Look, I don't have any money," because at the time I was devastated by the suicide financially. And it's, if anybody's out there listening, I totally, my heart goes out to you, because it's such a hard losing somebody tragically, unexpectedly.
Yes.
Financially, it's unexpected.
Oh.
However, when I got together with Simon, as I mentioned, um, said to Lottie about the training, I said, I really feel drawn to doing this firewalking idea, thinking to myself, I haven't got a clue what it is, don't know anything about it. I just knew it was the element of fire. And I was like, I feel really drawn to this. I don't even know why. And I said, I can't afford it at the minute. So just, yeah, we'll just leave it. And then, yeah, as it happened, and it was finances that was linked to my partner. Something happened overnight where I had sat down and written about doing firewalking. And the next day, as I was on the phone to Lottie again, saying to her, I'm not sure if I can do this, some money came through. And it was the pretty much the exact amount of money for not only myself, but for myself and Simon to go on the training together. And yeah, we just sat down and cried about it and went, this is something that feels right. It feels like it needs to be money that goes into something that's going to help
Help.
other
See, that's the
people.
thing. This is the thing. It's not just for you. It's to help and to serve. And yeah, it is. It's really interesting. I think that attitude is a far more. It can be a gift, because yes, to serve and not. Money has been an issue or lack of abundance in that field, shall we say? And it's much deeper than just not working hard enough or what doing it. But I think it does flow into your life more than if you do what you do in order to serve and help other people. There's a half an hour Oprah thing on that. But so you had the money just come in because it was meant to be, for both of you. So when did you do that, Karen? When did you do
So
your
that was
first?
April 2024. And
Okay.
yeah, since then we've done a day event, and we did our first 3-day retreat in September, and we're looking forward to our
I'm quite
next
tempted,
retreat,
I must
which
say,
is
because
4 days in March, this coming month.
fabulous. Okay. Now, if you will send me any details of that, and I'll put it in with this podcast, okay, in the notes. So the details of Karen's retreats will be there.
We've only got one space left, so
Oh wow,
we'll have,
for the March. Okay, okay.
yeah.
Wow,
But yeah,
you see
if there's anyone watching,
that's brilliant. So, well, this will go out on Wednesday morning. So, if there's a space
beautiful.
left, there is. If not, people can ask you when the next one's coming up. And so we have so much to talk about, but this has been nearly 50 minutes, which is, I think, enough. And we've covered a lot, actually. I'm dying to ask you about when you first put your foot on those hot embers. What do they coach you into your mindset that it doesn't, and then you walk along these red hot, how come you don't get burned feet?
Well, I would stay away from the scientific side because there is science behind
Yes.
firewalking. Google it if you want to. But what I work with is energy. Now, for my whole journey and what I believe has brought me to working with the fire is learning how to have my energetic boundaries in place. And
Yes.
what I believe is that if we are respectful of ourselves and we have reverence for ourselves, we also need to have reverence for the fire. So it's all about respecting the space, respecting yourself, respecting the space, listening. It's not about doing these things quick. I'm not really into the rah rah Tony Robbins type firewalk. It's a much more sacred spiritual experience for me. And so stepping that onto the coals is always a choice. It's never a, I have to do this because
It wouldn't
everyone's
work,
watching
would
me,
it?
all of this. I don't want to be, because if you step onto the fire with a feeling of I'm not sure or I'm hesitating, you're going to hesitate walking across the coals. So what I support people to do is to come into an energetic space where they feel grounded and they feel connected with the fire itself. The fire is a living thing, and my job on this earth is to help people to respect and to learn how to love the beauty of life, and
Beginning with
that's really
themselves.
what, yeah, absolutely.
What a beautiful place to end for now. I'm sure we could have many more conversations. Darling Karen, thank you so, so much. Is there
You're welcome.
anything you wanted me to ask you that would help you speak to our audience around what you do or
I
say?
guess, yes, I I can talk about the things that I'm doing at the moment, if
Yes.
that's helpful.
Yes. Anything in
Or
particular you want to promote? Let's because actually what you do is so beautiful and needed that it's not a salesy promotion. It's just show and tell. So yes, please go ahead.
I think, without, I'm not selling anything, but if people are interested if people understand and are hearing in their hearts and souls about taking time, particularly this year, before the end of this year, to slow down, I am opening a wintering, a dreaming temple, I'm calling it a dreaming temple, where we can come together. And it's very, very simple. It's not about doing, it's not about achieving, it's just about listening. And I really believe we're all being called to listen better before we move into next year, which is it's going to be an amazing energetic year. The energies are very intense at the moment. And so this sort of nurturing, sacred listening, but dreaming state, dreaming place, a place to curl up and dream, is actually really important this particular year, because next year we're moving into a leadership year, and we're also moving into the year of the fire horse, which
Okay.
is very intense energy
Okay.
from February onwards. So I'm opening this space
Yeah.
specifically for this year.
When?
So I'm going to be doing a Friday deal. So if anyone wants to join my email list, it's yoursoulradiance.co.uk.
Yeah.
And I'll be sending out emails about that.
Super. So
So
everyone will be there. So this podcast will be out on Wednesday. So that's in just in time for your Friday list. So thank you, Karen, so, so much. It's gone so quickly. I could listen to your wisdom and beauty forever, and so I'm so glad that we have been back in touch, and that you've done this. Thank you for being on the podcast. I'm sure I'll need to invite you back again. So, everybody, I hope you found that really of interest, helpful, and enjoyable. So if you did, please remember to subscribe, press like, and share with your friends. Anybody you feel needs this, please share. And I'll put about Karen's contact details in the notes of the webinar mad this last week of the podcast. Thank you, Karen, very, very much. Where can they reach you, actually? What is your website?
if they go to yoursoulradiance.co.uk,
Okay.
you can sign up for
All sorts.
information
Yeah.
there.
All
Or
right,
if you
darling.
catch me on Facebook, I'm on Facebook.
Okay. All right.